Hi everybody, my name is Cindy Krum and I'm the CEO of MobileMoxie based in Denver, Colorado. We do mobile SEO and ASO consulting as well as technical and international SEO and ASO, and I am super happy to be talking to you today about fighting imposter syndrome with facts. This is a presentation that I originally gave at the Zenith conference in Duluth, and I'm recording it for you guys for anyone who couldn't make it to that conference. So here we go. Just in case you don't know who I am, I've been doing SEO for a really long time. Last year I was named one of the 10 most influential SEO experts of the year. I have a book about mobile SEO that gets 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I've worked with a lot of really big brands, so I have experienced my own imposter syndrome from time to time as a consultant, but also witnessing it among the teams of people that I work with. So let's start by talking about what is imposter syndrome in digital marketing. So in general, when we talk about imposter syndrome, it's the condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally, despite doing great stuff and being a high-performing person at your job, and it's kind of a feeling of being a fraud or a phony. And when we talk about it in digital marketing, it's actually quite common because of a lot of different reasons, but it's specifically, in this case, feeling anxious about your ability in digital marketing, especially SEO, in ways that limit your sense of personal fulfillment and satisfaction with your job, feeling like a fraud or a phony at your job, if it's SEO or just general digital marketing, but especially when you're working or talking about your work with clients, colleagues, and stakeholders. And it's really important, even if you're not a person who feels imposter syndrome, because other people do. And so it matters when you're choosing products and helping people avoid burnout. It matters for retaining and motivating employees. It matters for anticipating customer pain points and adapting your communication. And even if you're building tools for SEOs and designing systems, understanding imposter syndrome and how it can affect our day-to-day work can also help you do a better job at the things that you need to do that aren't SEO, managing people, working with tools, working with customers, finding customers, hiring, all of these things. And in reality, it's just about empathy, understanding that we're all learning as we go, and the rules are all constantly changing. And so knowing that the people that you work with may be feeling this, and I want to give everyone a sense of, camaraderie here, because even the best of us feel imposter syndrome sometimes a lot, especially right now with all of the changes that are happening with Chat GPT. Even Lily Ray, who's a fantastic internationally recognized SEO, says in this tweet that before, the SEO industry was flooded with too much content about SEOs, or about SEO and understanding the value of SEO, and now with everyone using AI and going in that direction, it just feels like a fire hose of information with SEO and AI tools and all of those things. And especially when we think about all of the buzz that's happening with the AI tools and Chat GPT, those things are learning so quickly and improving so quickly. And if you think about how we normally do SEO, or how we normally think about technology, you have to use the Wayne Gretzky quote, it's about skating to where the puck is going. But with these things that are advancing so quickly, the puck is much, much further out, and that makes it so much harder to really anticipate everything that you need to do for your job. So in preparation for this talk, I ran a Twitter poll asking people what was their main cause of imposter syndrome, or what did they think was the main cause. And I gave 4 options, or 3 options, and then a something else. And I put constant changes and updates, unclear Google communication, bad tools, tracking and information, or something else. And what it turned out was a lot of people think it's this constant changing and updates from Google. But then there was a lot of interesting stuff in the something else category. And so I ended up adjusting my perspective. And this is now kind of a lot of what I think is playing into imposter syndrome in digital marketing and SEO. And of course, you have to, take this all with a grain of salt, because this is just what I've gotten from the people that I know on and offline, and my interpretation of it. So you may experience it differently, but what we know as a rule is that everyone experiences it, to some degree now and then, and that it's not something that we can necessarily make go away, but we can make it better or more manageable when we talk about it openly and think about it and discuss it and understand it. Now, based on the feedback that I got, I was kind of interested, and I dug in because I feel like there are 2 different groupings of causes here. I think that these top 3, personalities, business culture, and industry culture, are kind of about individuals and how they relate to other individuals. But then there's this last piece, the structural design, and that's something that almost everyone experiences in a similar way together. And I think that really this structural design thing is very important, and potentially more important or more manageable than the interpersonal causes. So to me, when I got the feedback, I saw that a lot of people were blaming these interpersonal causes for imposter syndrome, but I think actually a lot of those interpersonal causes are made worse by structural causes, and what that means is they're made worse by Google and what Google is trying to do. And that's not to say that Google's doing a bad job at anything, that's just saying some of it's by design. So let's dig in here a little bit. Let's talk first about the interpersonal causes and then about some structural causes. So in terms of interpersonal causes, everyone has different personalities, and what we know is some people are naturally born very confident and others aren't, and some people are confident in some areas of their life and others. And one of the responses that I got is, well, there are people that just walk into the room and never feel any kind of self-doubt, and then there are the others that will feel self-doubt related to everything in their life. And that's true, but only true enough to tell us that all of this is on a spectrum, and it's not even necessarily just one spectrum. People can have lots of confidence in one aspect of their job and less confidence in another, or they might feel like more of an imposter in one area and less of an imposter in other areas. And so this is going to vary person by person, and it's going to vary personality by personality. So it's actually somewhat tough, I think, for me to talk about this, because I know what I know from my experience and my personality, and I don't have all of the personal experiences that everyone in the room does, but I'm gonna do my best giving you kind of what I found when I talked to other people also. So there's the individual and their own personality at work, and then there's this larger business culture that I think causes imposter syndrome, because we are always working under constraints, and the different constraints can limit our ability to succeed. And this includes things like limited budgets, limited development time, and even the way that SEO and digital marketing is discussed within businesses. There's a natural mistrust of SEO because people still think of it as like SEOs are snake oil salesmen, and so even if you do a great job, the people in the business industry or in the industry that you're in might think, oh, well, it's a trick, or it's going to be short-lived, or this is fake, they just paid for it somehow, they bought links, or they did something sneaky. And I think that kind of sets us up to fail, because there's this expectation that what we're doing already is not somehow legitimate. And then we have a lot of things that people don't openly talk about, like when business goals are in conflict for what SEO and digital marketers need. And that can be a number of things. You know, the business wants to move fast, so they have to use this platform instead of that platform, which would be better. Or this is our KPI and it is in direct conflict with SEO, but you still are expected to do SEO. So stuff like that can limit your ability to succeed at any project that you're doing with digital marketing. But people aren't talking about that, or when you don't succeed, it's hard to say, well, you know, we picked some KPIs that were probably counterproductive, or, well, you know, we did this platform transition and I said it was gonna be bad and it was bad, and now we have to fix it, and that's a business decision, not an SEO decision. So talking about it in very straightforward and honest ways can be really difficult, because you don't want to jeopardize your job or hurt anyone's feelings or throw anyone under the bus. So that makes just that part of the interpersonal aspect of it really difficult. And then, of course, you know, there's always misunderstandings of the limitations of SEO. It doesn't do magic, and it doesn't do itself. We have to work as a team. We have to collaborate. And just because we talk about SEO doesn't mean it's actually getting done, or getting done correctly, or getting done quickly. And, you know, hiring an SEO consultant, if you disregard all of their advice, isn't going to improve your SEO. So just this magical thinking sometimes comes into the picture where we aren't honest, or we're forced to come up against expectations that are not realistic, because people misunderstand the limitations of what SEO and digital marketing can do. And then, of course, there's a lot of miscommunication that comes from people in different job roles within digital marketing, because I can tell you that there's a big difference between being a freelancing consultant, running a SaaS tool company, and being an in-house SEO, or working at an agency. You know, I've seen some agencies where people have up to 100 clients, and then when you're freelance, you might have 2 clients, 5 clients, 10 clients, and then there's stuff all the way in between. And when you're in-house, maybe you just have 1 client or 1 brand that has a couple URLs. That's very different, because you only learn about one industry, whereas consultants, agencies know about a lot of different industries. So everyone is going to have an impact of what it is, or an idea of what it is to be an SEO based on their history of job roles and the places that they've worked and the companies that they've worked with. And this can be super limiting or confusing when people are conversing about their job. If I say, oh, well, we have this client and all we did was update H1 tags, that may not make sense to you if you're in-house and you live and breathe everything about one website, but it might make a lot of sense if you're at an agency where you have 100 clients and you only get to spend 1 hour per month or 2 hours per month on any one client. That's totally different. And then people also mentioned just a lack of promotion and recognition, or a lack of feedback about their work. And that's totally common all throughout digital marketing, because so many people don't either understand how it works or understand what reasonable expectations are. And so bosses sometimes don't know when to give good feedback, or they're just lost in their own world and their own KPIs. And so since they don't really understand what you do all day, they don't want to pat you on the back for the wrong thing. So they just kind of say, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And that doesn't feel great. Whereas it's much easier to perhaps reward someone who's selling something because they sold more. And that's a very easy, obvious KPI. And then, SEO especially takes a long time to track, and so it's harder to prove that something that you did actually turned out well, caused you to hit your KPIs. And so that causes another kind of doubt in management of, should they be giving you the recognition now? Should they wait? Or are we sure you deserve recognition? There could be alternate causes. And that can be really defeating and hard and can really foster a lot of imposter syndrome. And then the last thing I'll say here is what I call professional CYA. So covering your reputation by teammates and managers. So either teammates don't want to fess up when they've made a mistake, or managers don't want to fess up when they told you to do something and it didn't work. Or sometimes development teams will have made a mistake and they know they made a mistake, but they didn't tell you about it so that you could help. They rather just fix it and hope that no one notices. Anything like that where people aren't being fully honest with you or with the people who work with you and your managers can really be detrimental to your outlook, your confidence in your job role, and can really, really create a lot of imposter syndrome for digital marketers and SEOs. Now, this is kind of the larger business theme, like what it's like to work and operate as a business and within a business when you're a digital marketer. But there are also some more specific causes that are related more to our industry, the digital marketing industry and the SEO industry. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into these and just go through these quickly. So there's 5 of these: Twitter, popularity, groupthink, and gatekeeping, bad or expired advice, poor communication, and shiny new things. And I'm going to go through each of these individually. Now, of course, I am on Twitter a lot, and lots of SEOs love Twitter, but there are also lots of SEOs who absolutely hate Twitter. And it's kind of a polarizing thing, but there are reasons to dislike Twitter. Some of it is because of the other things, like bad advice, like this article generator that you can generate a bunch of articles with one click, lots of ads and kind of misstatements, but then there's also a lot of argument and kind of cattiness that happens on Twitter, or boasting that happens on Twitter. So if you're following the wrong people, it can feel like a really toxic community, and I get that. My advice there is just, follow the right people, unfollow the right people, mute topics that you're not interested in, and get the most out of the community, and don't take anything too seriously. If it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't sound right, shake it off and move on, because it might not be right. But then also use it as a resource. I search Twitter a lot for answers to questions to see who's saying what, who believes what, because there's not always a definitive answer. And then just watch it as an FYI if you can stand it. If you can't, there are plenty of other communities online where you can participate and interact with really great SEOs and bounce ideas off of them, or just keep up with the news. It doesn't have to be Twitter. But Twitter does seem to reinforce this problem of popularity, groupthink, and gatekeeping. It's where most of this happens, where you get a lot of people who just think, well, someone said this and that person knows everything about this, so it must be right. And that person travels all over the world and must be right. Or this person, I asked a question and they acted like it was a stupid question and that they don't want me, asking these questions or sharing this article or anything like that, and they feel like they have the right to gatekeep or to tell people who can say what when. And that happens a lot on Twitter, but it also happens a lot other places. It happens on Reddit. It kind of happens offline too, although people are a little bit more shy about it. Thankfully, it would be nice if it didn't happen online. But again, this is where you have to take everything in with a grain of salt. There are going to be people who are loud and wrong. There are going to be people who are quiet and right. And there are going to be people who just go with the crowd because they really haven't dug in to a topic and they don't really know about it. And so they just buy into the publicly available narrative without thinking about it themselves, without understanding it, without testing it. That is definitely a problem in our industry. But the more you're aware of it and the more you foster your own learning, and your own kind of confidence in your skill set or what you've seen and what you know, the better off you're going to be. So yes, this kind of thing can create a huge feeling of imposter syndrome, but what you need to know for yourself is that you don't have to be speaking, writing, or even praised anywhere, even by your bosses, to be great at your job. You really just have to work on your own skills and find satisfaction where you can in knowing that you're doing the best that you can, and you're probably doing a better job than would have happened if you weren't there. You're contributing, and yeah, don't take anything that you see that's based only on popularity, or it seems like it might just be groupthink and no one seems to be questioning this, or someone's telling you who can say what and when and who can think what and when. Try and shake all of that off. That's not a good part of the industry, and it's not helping anyone. Learn new things, question the status quo, or do anything innovative, right? These kinds of pile-on situations where everyone just goes in the same direction without thinking about it are never good, and they never foster anything unique. So don't be afraid to think your own thoughts, ask your own questions, and stuff like that. Now, another reason that I think people hate especially Twitter, but also other forums, and they kind of distrust SEO, is because there is a lot of bad and expired advice out there, and this just happens because Google's constantly changing. And so every time Google changes something, there might be a new perspective, or someone might misunderstand something, or some people are only part-time SEOs but really want to get a bunch of credit for their SEO, so they'll write something and publish it, and it gets enough links that they're happy because that's all they wanted in the first place. And so they'll publish potentially bad advice or expired advice, or advice that doesn't have enough guidance and caveats about when it's true and when it's not. So always take everything that you read with a grain of salt. Make sure that you know who are experts in different parts of digital marketing and who might not be, or who might be distrusted, or who might have a strong record of giving reliable advice versus a less strong record, and always question the sources that you're using. And then this is a big one, and I felt the need to include this in this talk specifically because I think it's a big thing that speakers in our industry and writers in our industry kind of face and deal with, and then their audiences who read or listen to their feedback also deal with, but no one's really talking about it. So I wanted to put it out there and say there is a lot of poor communication about SEO strategy out there, and when I say poor, what I mean is incomplete, and that's why we have this diagram here. I think that when people write or talk about SEO, they want it to be a story that's quick and easy to understand and clear. And what that can mean is skipping over strategies that they tried that didn't work, or some backstory about things that they had that going on a website that didn't seem important to this story but then may have been important, or background about a competitive situation or a branding situation, or people are writing case studies with composite metrics and stories that are representative samples. And I'll tell you right now, I have to do that later when I get to case studies. These are representative samples. They're not actual case studies because some consultants can't even talk about their clients, right? And so we have these composite stories or limited stories, and it seems so simple when someone is talking about it on stage or when someone is writing about it, because they're leaving out a lot of the stuff that was a dead end, right? We can be grateful when people say, we tried this, we tried that, none of those things worked, here's what did work. That's a really great story. That, I would say, is not poor communication, but in many cases, we're forced to make things quick and snappy and easy to understand and impossible to misconstrue, and that can feel like poor communication or not getting the full story every single time. And so you read an article or you listen to a talk and you're like, wow, they just figured that out. Like, they're magic. They didn't have to try anything. And that's not necessarily the case. A lot of SEO is trial and error, but that doesn't make for a very compelling, easy to read story. And so a lot of the things that you might consume as an SEO are a limited version of the story. So maybe it's poor communication, maybe it's just good storytelling, who knows? But that does happen quite a bit, and it's quite common. And I think that can have a deleterious effect on people's own confidence in themselves, because they don't see all of the effort and the trial and error that goes into every situation that they hear about or read about. And then, of course, there's just new shiny things. And this is natural with SEO changing so much. There's always a new tool coming out. There's always a new algorithm or a new update coming out or a new language model coming out. Lots of things to test, to talk about, to investigate. And this can distract us from our core job. So I included this great article from Brian Frederick. I'm not saying it's a bad article, but things like 6 ways SEO pros are using Chat GPT right now makes us all feel like we should be using Chat GPT for our day-to-day SEO or digital marketing efforts. And that may or may not be true, depending on your job role and what you need to accomplish in a day and what kinds of problems your clients or websites are facing. Maybe you should be using ChatGPT, but maybe they need basic block and tackle stuff. And so I think that the way that people write these headlines can also be shaming in a way, and make us feel like we're imposters or not enough if we don't dive right into every new shiny thing. But I want to tell you that you don't have to. And even though I'm known for predicting the future of Google and the future of SEO and things that Google's going to care about or release and stuff like that, I don't jump into every new shiny thing right away. I usually will check them out, be advised, read some articles, but I'm not diving in deep every time there's something new, because if I did, I would never get anything done. So what I recommend is stay up in the news, know what's going on and happening, but don't lose your mind every time something new happens, because there's going to be a constant flood of new things. And especially with all the changes related to artificial intelligence right now, it's constant. And I know there are very great SEOs that are sending me private messages saying how overwhelmed they feel with all the news and all the changes and stuff like that. And I feel that too, but I intentionally restrict myself from going too deep on anything that's too new, because I want to see how things settle out, and I want to let other people try them when they're at their newest stage and maybe a bit buggy, and then dive in a more gradual way as things prove that they're going to stick around and be important. So those are all of the interpersonal things, and those are really going to be individual, hard to control, and hard for me to address. I just wanted to acknowledge them for you and say, yes, these are real. If you're feeling that, then you're not alone. But what I think is really important to talk about, and what I think I can help with most, is the things that are not the interpersonal causes, the things that are the structural causes by design, the things that Google has included. So remember, the interpersonal causes are the things that everyone deals with a little bit differently in their day-to-day, with their personality, the business culture, the company that they're in, and the way they interact with the rest of the community and Twitter and new things and stuff like that. But that these structural causes, I think, feed those interpersonal causes, and the structural causes are by design because of Google's main business interests. So let's think about Google, and let's not forget to think about Google as a business with its own business interests. What you have to remember as a digital marketer is that Google has their own business to run, and they have to make money the way that they know how. And what they've always done is made money primarily through ad revenue. And that can be ad revenue that's coming in from regular search ads, from YouTube, from AdMob, but then also from things like Google Play and Android phones and Google Cloud, and everything else that Google does. Google has a lot of different parts of their business, but they make money based on ads. And so if you look at any of the changes Google does, they always say it's for the benefit of the user, but what they don't say, it's for the benefit of the user because happy users consume more ads or can be shown more ads in a variety of different platforms. That's their goal. And Google's interest is not necessarily in helping SEOs and digital marketers do a better job. Someone super smart like Mike King is pointing out that this is kind of a trick, that the way that we're interacting with Google seems a bit unbalanced and unfair, where he says, I live on a planet where we're discussing computers showing sparks of AGI, but we can still only get up to 1,000 rows of indexing data out of Search Console. Make it make sense. What he's saying here is that Google is doing all of these smart things, and we have all of these, artificial intelligence and machine learning models that can do these amazing, amazing things, but Google limits the tools that it gives us to optimize our sites to 1,000 rows. It's not fair. Google's not investing in helping digital marketers do their job, because digital marketers come in and, make Google's job harder. We spam things, we optimize so that we can show up first, even if we maybe don't deserve it. We do all these things to keep them on their toes, and the more digital marketers have access to great tools, the harder Google's going to have to work to make sure that we don't take advantage of that. And Barry Schwartz here says Search Console is even going to be deprecating some things, and this is new as of the day before I think I did this talk, but even still new as of last week. Google's deprecating important things that they've given us as tools for feedback, like the mobile usability report, the mobile friendly test and API, and the page experience report. They told us that these were to help us do our jobs, and now Google's taking them away. They're not even supporting them anymore, and there's a lot of question in the industry about, well, were they tricks? Did they ever mean anything anyway? And it's an interesting question to ask, but Google is definitely not bending over backwards here to help SEOs. They're giving us reports, then taking them away, saying that they're important, and then saying, oh, they're gone now. And this is even true with paid digital marketers. Google last week also announced that they're going to sunset for attribution models for their ads and analytics. So we now only have data-driven attribution and last click. Google used to have 4 others: time decay, linear, position-based, and first-click attribution. Those are now gone. Google's not going to support them anymore. Even for people who are paying to be shown, showing up in Google Ads, Google's like, it's a lot of work to maintain those. We don't want to. So then there are these guys, the Google Webmasters. So it's John Mueller in the middle and Gary and Martin on the sides. These are the most public Google Webmaster representatives that there are, and they sometimes speak at conferences and do talks on YouTube and try and help SEOs do a better job. And this is fantastic. This is great. And these guys are great, and they work really hard, and they do their best, and they're very nice people. And they do a great job. But the problem is they're not really given much priority, or it doesn't seem like they're given huge resources even at Google, based on the number of total employees that Google has. Let's say that these 3 are representative of maybe a total of 15 webmaster representatives around the world. If that's true, they're still only representing 0.008% of Google's workforce. And to me, this is kind of fake. This is Google doing something to say that they did something, but it strikes me as a fig leaf. It's just to make it seem like they're trying to help, but they're just not enough of them to really do a great job at it. And I included this in case that fig leaf comment didn't make you laugh. But the reality is Google has more massage therapists at just one office in California than it has webmaster representatives, or at least they had that many massage therapists because they were part of the most recent layoffs. So this article says that Google did job cuts for 1,800 employees, including 27 massage therapists. And if you read on, there were 24 on-site massage therapists at one location, so 24. So that's a lot of massage therapists. So Google, we can see from this, what does Google care about? Well, they did care a lot about massage therapists, enough to have 24 of them, which is more than the 15 webmaster representatives that we have around the world, and that was 24 at just one office. So, but at least the webmaster guys didn't get laid off. I guess that's good. So they care about that. But Google is not investing to the full extent that they could in helping digital marketers do their job, and it's because helping digital marketers do their job makes Google's job harder. So Google's business interests are making our job hard, and that's why the classic answer for everything SEO related is it depends. Search results are always going to change based on query, location, language, devices, and sometimes maybe even time of day. And that means SEO recommendations are going to change based on those things, but also potentially based on the industry that they're in, the level of competition that any website is facing, the platforms that a website might be on, the site problems that they're trying to solve, and the developer capabilities that they're working with. If you give a really hard project to a low competency development team and they screw it up, is it worth the risk? So we have to weigh a lot of different things when we're giving recommendations, and that's why it's hard to get a really clear, direct story without all of these other things, or without saying it depends on all of these other things, because it's an algorithm, and that's the nature of an algorithm. An algorithm has many, many variables, and Google has said over 200 variables, which means the recommendation that we give might depend on multiple of those 200 variables. So it's not, X plus Y equals something, or it's not X plus links equals something. It's a lot of different things coming together, and that's why we have to say it depends. And as we add in artificial intelligence and learning models, it depends in a way that Google representatives and Google engineers don't always know what's going to happen. It depends that much that they can't look at something and say, oh, well, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. That's not the way it works, because everything is dependent, and sometimes there are multiple factors going into something. You can't know, and they can't even know what is absolutely going to work and what it might take to get the result that you're looking for. So what I want to give you here is a theoretical model for thinking about your job as a digital marketer or an SEO. And what I want you to do is avoid this thing called resulting. So resulting is a concept where you evaluate the validity of your play, let's say in a poker game, by how it worked. So you bet on this hand and you lost. Does that necessarily mean that the bet was a bad idea? A lot of people would say yes, because you lost. But that's not actually how poker or games of chance and things like SEO work. You can make good decisions because everything that we're doing is to some degree a gamble. We don't know how everything's going to work out. And so what we're doing is using everything that we know, knowing that we can't know everything, but we're using everything that we know to make the best bet that we can based on what we know, based on the statistical likelihood that it will turn out well. Now, in poker, if you make a bet on a hand, it's because, if you're a good poker player, you know the odds of someone else having a better hand. And you know that if you make the bet, either you've done a good job bluffing or you statistically have the best hand. And so you make that bet. If you lose, that doesn't mean it was a good bet. It just means that you lost, and there was always going to be a probability that you would lose, because the statistics said that this is the probability that you would lose, so that minus 100 is the probability that you would you would win. It would work out. So just because something didn't work out doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad bet. The statistics were on your side. It just means that it didn't work out that one time. And that doesn't mean that you wouldn't make the exact same bet if you had the same opportunity again. Now, our problem in SEO is that we don't have repeats of the exact same thing over and over again because conditions are always changing, competition is always changing, and strategies that work on one site might not work on another because there are so many variables at play. So every time you make a decision, your decision and the best bet that you can make is going to depend on the project. And then, what bothers me the most, and I might just take this too personally, but I think that Google also does give kind of not awesome communication back to us because they'll say vague things like just make great content and everything else works out, and that's just patently not true. And I see it as gaslighting because I'm awesome, my website's awesome, my work is awesome. Why? Maybe Google could be a little bit more specific. And sometimes they are, yes. But in the end, these platitudes like just make great content aren't helpful, and they also foster imposter syndrome, right? Because you thought you did make great content, or this is the best content I can make based on the other conditions that I'm facing, or what have you. So that can be frustrating, I think. And I think to some degree a little bit insulting. So let's talk about some of the structural causes of imposter syndrome, and let's look at a couple case studies. Now, I'll remind you again that these are composites, and that I've streamlined the stories to make them easy to understand, and that I don't actually talk about real clients because I sign papers that say I won't. So first we'll talk about we'll imagine that we're an SEO for Zales, a diamond company, and we care about keywords like buy engagement ring and buy diamonds. Specifically, we're trying to boost foot traffic in Atlanta, so we say let's just look at traffic in Atlanta, and that gives us maybe something better where we can specialize and do something special for this location. So if we look at how Zales is ranking on this one keyword, almost every day they're ranking in position 1. Average position for this keyword is position 1. That's fantastic from an SEO perspective. Congratulations. But the problem is the traffic is still variable. And you can see, yes, there's kind of a pattern to it, but not necessarily. It does look like things go up during the week and maybe down during weekends. Maybe people are searching and planning their search during the week and then going into the store on the weekends or something like that. But you would think that on days where we were ranking number 1 for a big keyword, that we would have reliably some clicks. But it looks like on this graph, not really. We have days where there are no clicks and minimal impressions. So why would that happen? And then we can dig in even a little bit further and say, okay, so on this couple of days, what we see is, yes, we're still, mostly position 1, average position 1.2, but when we look at the click-through rate, it's as high as 86.7 on the first day, and then as low as 61.9 on the second day. Now that click-through rate is wildly variable. If you've ever looked at things like, a PPC campaign, if you had PPC ads that had this much click-through variability, you might think something might be wrong. This is a big kind of look into how sampling might impact the data that we're using every day to decide what's working and what's not. So maybe this is because of sampling, but your bosses, want to know. We have a reliable CTR on these ads in PPC. Why don't we have reliable CTR on this ranking in SEO? How do you explain it? And you might just say, well, sampling, and that doesn't feel very good. That doesn't sound very good to your bosses. But if you look at facts, you might get a better understanding of what's going on, because when we look at Atlanta City Center for the query buy engagement ring, we get these results side by side on mobile. So it's each day. So 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. And when we look at what that ranking looks like for Zales, it's different every day. So maybe the variability in the CTR has something to do with sampling, but maybe the variability in CTR has something to do actually with what's shown, because it's always the same page here. And we weren't making changes to this page. We weren't. But Google was deciding to show different formats of a search result every single day. And some of these are just probably more compelling than others. But also they have different placements. So you can see when we parse this, and this is the MobileMoxie tools, by the way. So we capture the screenshots and we parse it. And what we can see in the first one is that there's a PLA and a map, and we're right under that in position 1. And the size of that is 5% compared to the rest of the SERP. Then the next day, we're the 5th thing down under PLAs, 2 PPC ads, and maps. Same thing the next day, and those are both 4% of the SERP. And then the 4th day, we're back after just a PLA and a map, and but we're 1,646 pixels from the top. So these things above us are taking a variable amount of space. What's above us, even though it's not counted as a position, is taking a variable amount of space, because on Day 3, we're 1,828 pixels down. On day 2, we're 1,862 pixels down. Do you think that makes a difference in click-through rate? Absolutely. And so we can look and we can say, okay, well, this is what's happening to Zales. Is this, maybe Google's confused and just showing different stuff because they're confused and they don't know what to show. Is this happening to anyone else? And we look at the competitor, Blue Nile, and yes, same thing for them. One day after another, they have different formatting of their search result for the same page over and over again. Now, this is something that no one's talking about, but it's going to impact your click-through rate. And that, of course, we can rank number 1, but it doesn't matter if no one's clicking. But these are things we really can't control very well. So when you look and you see this first Blue Nile is position 1, but then the second one is below one set of PLAs, one sponsored ad, but it has 3 pictures and it has some expanders for FAQ. How do we account for this much variability? And we look at the next one. We have some filters, we have 2 sponsored ads, and then there we are again. This time, this is Blue Nile, so they're above the map pack, and different pictures on every single day. The pink one's always included, but the other ones, maybe they are, maybe they're not, and we don't get any reporting on that. And so it's a matter of what's pushing us down and above us that's not getting counted in the positions that Google counts. They don't count the paid ones because they don't want you to think about that. And it also changes probably based on what's included in the search result, how it looks. So not just what's above it, how high is it, what other competition is in there, what's interesting and around it, stuff like that. So I think that, Google could be doing a better job of talking to us about this because it's our website. But people who aren't looking at reality, looking at real search results and using facts to back up their SEO claims are probably missing stuff like this. So let's talk about something else, which is the insidious way that Google counts rankings, and that all SEO tools really count rankings. And I kind of alluded to this previously, but let's dig in. Let's pretend you're the SEO at BBC Sports, and what you care about is football. It's 2022 and you care about football rankings in the UK. So you check out SEMrush and you see, oh yeah, football, super competitive term. SEMrush says the keyword difficulty is 100%. So you feel pretty good when you look and you see this. Oh, when people search in the UK for football, there we are. We have the top ranking and we have some indented links. Yeah, there's a knowledge graph over there, but we're also showing up in the news carousel, our own news carousel below our listing. So we're owning this generic query for football, and it lands on this page, which is great. We feel really great about this, right? We look and we see, show me the UK football rankings for BBC Sport, rocking that straight blue line on number 1. That's fantastic. Okay, we feel pretty good about this. But then We look at our Search Console and something went wrong. We have basically maintained position 1. That orange line hasn't changed too much, but things fell off a cliff. Where did the clicks and impressions go? Everyone wants to know. Everyone's wondering what you've done wrong, and all you know is you're ranking number 1, and you feel pretty good about it. So you can dig around and you can figure out, oh, well, that was during the FIFA World Cup. That's when things fell off that cliff. But that doesn't really make sense, because we know that traffic for football goes up during the World Cup. It always has before. We can look and say, yeah, definitely it went up during the World Cup in the UK. And in fact, worldwide, searches for football went up that week. So why, when we look at the site, that previous one was just one page, when we look at the whole site, things look flat? What happened? How do we explain this? And if we're not looking at real search results, we might miss something really important that happened. So yes, when we searched for football before the World Cup, there was a knowledge graph that was just about football. But you can see in this that there's this FIFA knowledge graph. And if you'll remember, it went on for like 2 miles. It was really, really long. And this is for a query for World Cup soccer, or no, World Cup scores, sorry. But when we go back to that football query and we look at it, we can see football, football, football. This is a time comparison, same thing we looked at before, but without the phone shells. But when we were searching for football on the 14th, we got BBC, this time news on top, and then the website. And the 15th, website first with all the indented links. On the 16th, what happens? The query for football, instead of showing us right up there at the top, is now canonicalizing and showing a knowledge graph for FIFA World Cup. So they're not showing the previous knowledge graph that was there for football. It had a picture of a soccer ball and talked about the rules of how you play football. It decided that anyone searching for football, starting this day, which is a couple days before the World Cup actually started, anyone searching for that wants World Cup information. It made an assumption about what people meant when they search for football. And what's interesting here is that FIFA is related to football, clearly. In the UK, obviously, they call soccer football. So FIFA is related to football. But FIFA is a subset of football. Not all football is FIFA football. But Google decided that the lower thing in the knowledge graph needed to be primary, instead of the thing that talks about the rules of football and shows a picture of a ball and stuff like that. Instead, they decided this, and they showed it for the whole time. And remember, it was forever long, had lots of information about goals, it had videos. It was a really intense knowledge graph. And if we're just looking at our number 1 rankings, we still had it. Straight line. But Google's not telling us where that position 1 starts. And so it takes looking at actual results to know that position 1 after the knowledge graph in this case is 1,802 pixels down, and that actually that was kind of on a good day. It got even further down, and that people were finding everything that they wanted about the World Cup in the knowledge graph, so they had no need to click onto the BBC result that was below it. And so the clicks were kind of hijacked. But if we didn't know that this was possible, and if we didn't know that Google might re-understand a knowledge graph ranking temporarily and say, oh no, put the FIFA one in instead of the football, but only for this period of time, if we didn't capture real results, and we only noticed this after the fact, there would be no way to go back in time and search for football and see what people were getting those days, unless you're actually tracking it, which is why we built these tools, because I started to feel gaslit by clients or by Google doing weird stuff like this, but then us not having proof of it because we didn't actually capture the real results, or we only knew there was a problem after the results had gone away, if we're all busy and looking at other things. So I wanted to start capturing stuff like this to empower SEOs to see when things like this change, and then when they change back, because let's say, you're having to do projections about SEO traffic. You see this #1 ranking for this huge generic term, and you're like, we're going to kill it for the World Cup because we're ranking #1 for football. And then you do the opposite, right? You tank on traffic. That's going to make you look bad. But knowing these trends and these kinds of things, or anticipating that this might happen in your industry for a short period of time, where Google's injecting this huge knowledge graph for a keyword that you're ranking #1 on, and then they take it away. This is where reality helps you feel less of an imposter, because you can say, we know what happened. Google's never done this before. Here are the records from last year. It didn't happen last year. And this is caught us off guard. So you can be honest instead of trying to do the song and dance and tap dance around the issue. And you can tell the truth with proof and have everyone on the same page understanding it, rather than having to feel like you're lying or fibbing or just don't know, or just saying, well, I guess everyone just was clicking, everyone was not searching for football, they were searching for FIFA, or they were searching for the World Cup. Doesn't seem like that's what happened, right? So now you can feel better about telling the truth when things like this happen, and you can know about it in the first place. So what about something that's a bit more subtle than this? So let's talk about average rankings, because this is another thing I hate, and I don't think it serves SEOs well. Average is a horrible metric to look at. So let me show you why. Let's pretend now we're the SEO at Home Depot, and we have a big project related to lawnmowers. We care a lot about lawnmowers. We want to sell lots of lawnmowers this year. So we look at our SEM rush, and we look at our site. Overall, we had a big bump recently on the far right of that site, and this is for lawnmower queries. Our positions for words that include lawnmower are going up, and there's more of every color, including the yellow, which is the top 3. So we feel pretty good about this. But then we look and we say, oh, well, Lowe's is seeing a similar bump, and they're our direct competitor, for the same keyword. What happened? Why is everyone getting this bump? Because we felt good for a second when we thought it was just us, but everyone's getting it? That's not cool. What happened? Well, we can check out the news and say, well, maybe it was this product reviews update that finished rolling out, and Home Depot and Lowe's benefited, and maybe smaller companies didn't. Maybe, that's a good theory. That sounds good. But when we look at traffic, so we can say, yeah, we care about rankings. We're SEOs, and those rankings are going up. But when we look at traffic, traffic is going down or flat. Well, how can that be? If our rankings across the board for lawnmower are going up, why would overall traffic be going down? That doesn't make sense. And we can dig in specifically for lawnmower and see that this is definitely happening. We have keywords that are growing, but traffic going down. That's stressful. What do we say when people ask? Because you feel like, well, I did my job. My job is to rank it. Well, yeah, maybe. But the ranking doesn't matter if you're not getting clicks and you're not getting traffic. So it's not enough to rank, I guess. So you can look around, do some test searches, and see, well, there's a lot of ads. Maybe there's more ads. We don't know. It seems like a lot. Can we just blame PPC for this? Maybe. But if we look, those examples were mobile. If we look at mobile, yeah, there's a lot of ads. But we can go back in history and see it's really not that many more ads than there were before. So it maybe isn't fair to blame PPC, but we can see that there's some weird stuff in here. We can see the Explore Brands thing or the Buying Guide thing. And people also ask, and then these product grids where there's a lot of pictures of lawnmowers in this search result. A lot more than there used to be. So we think about it. And with this data, we can think about it a bit harder and say, yeah, there's a lot of pictures of lawnmowers, deals on lawnmowers, lots of stuff, view stories. There's a lot of new stuff happening in these queries, right? So maybe that's related to changes in Google, right? Google Mum, the language understanding model, maybe that's doing it. That was another buying guide they just showed, but it had no pictures. This is a really variable search result, as it turns out. So let's look at the parsing and say, okay, well, yeah, so on the first day, 3 ads, then 1 ad, just PLAs, then just PLAs, and the first website is starting at 750 pixels down, or 800 pixels down, but when there's 3 ads, it's starting at 1,233 pixels down, so that's pretty variable to start with. The number of ads might be just kind of messing things up overall, but when we look at those product grids and the things that were googly, Google hosted information like map packs, like people also ask, like buying guides, people also search for brand focus stuff. All the yellow stuff is Google stuff that might show our product but doesn't actually go directly to our site. So it's taking clicks, but they're never actually showing up. And they look good because they always have, or they regularly have pictures or star rankings or prices or descriptions, but those clicks might not be going to us, even if they include our content. And then we can look and we can say, oh yeah, well, Google added these filtery things, and that's a really long list of filters. You can actually expand it, and I put all the filters on the right. You can refine the search by reviews, by nearby, by on sale, by used. You can refine it by power sources. Do you want gas, electric, diesel? You can refine it by type. Do you want riding, walk behind, robotic, tow behind? So there's all of these different things that Google has added into the search result that might be taking clicks. So even if we have more rankings, people are clicking on other things, either in the search result that don't get them to our website, or in the search result that generate another search that Google could monetize with more ads or more things in the search result that people can click to and not get our website. It's quite insidious, I think. And they're cramming things closer together in some case with these product grids where that counts as an organic ranking, but we don't really know what number. And there's more density in the number of links that are there, and even the number of links that are in these popular lawnmower expanders, where Google, especially in places like the EU where they're getting in trouble for deceptive business practices or monopolistic business practices, Google can say, well, we're adding more links to the product and more visibility to the product because we're clustering all of these things close together. So as they add more links and more opportunities to click into any one search result, the chance that you'll get that click has gone down. And so it's kind of messing up the math of what we can expect, because like this deals on lawnmowers, that's a grid of 6, but the thing right above it is just a randomly placed product grid. It doesn't, you can see on the left phone, it doesn't even have a heading. It just shows up there. And those results don't actually go directly to the website. They go to a knowledge graph about that product, and then those links below it that compare the prices go to the website. And that's organic merchant center listings. And so Google's intercepting, even though Google is linking to the product pages from somewhere, there's a step that's added in the middle. And so more click options means an overall decrease in click volume. And Google Analytics and Search Console still count this traffic as organic. But what about other search tools like SEMrush? Are they even capturing that this is there number one, and how are they representing that as a ranking factor or a ranking element in the page? Because what I can tell you from our parsing and our screen captures in our tools is that one result can look like this with a shopping grid that appears separately in the search result 3 different times, and maybe includes 6 results, or maybe includes 4 results, or maybe includes 8 results. They can be clustered all different ways, but then also Google has started adding these merchant center listings in Google Maps and GMB, and they were, always a part of shopping, but now shopping has this added near me component where you can see inventory, and that's all counted as organic. So that's going to mess up your data, and here's the problem with that messing up your data. If you're not looking at Merchant Center specifically, it's all rolled up in the larger organic data in Search Console. And so I can tell you that we did a replatforming for one of my sites that had Merchant Center listings, and this is what it looked like. They weren't great Merchant Center listings. We just wanted to track what they were doing and make it available there. But when we did the replatforming, Merchant Center impressions, clicks, everything fell off a cliff. But we couldn't see that in Search Console because it's not separated out. So if you're not paying attention to all of the things that might be there, you might not know when there's a problem that's going to impact your traffic that you won't be able to sort out using Search Console, using Google Analytics, using any of the SEO tools, because they're not separating this stuff out. The only way you could separate it out is in the Google Merchant Center utility. So I think that Google could do so much better, but they're not. And I think that adds to this feeling of imposter syndrome and gaslighting. But sometimes it's not Google that's gaslighting you and making you feel like an imposter. Sometimes it's the people you work with. So let's look at a couple of these quick stories. So let's pretend we're the SEO at Rand McNally, and we've just launched some shopping pages, and they have a lot of JavaScript. And so we look at the shopping pages, and we had told the developers, we said, hey, for Google, you need to make sure that all of the links everywhere on the site are HTML links, not JavaScript links. And so the first thing you do when they launch the site, or maybe pre-launch, is you look and say, oh yeah, look, they did it. They have HTML links throughout the site. So that's great. So Google doesn't need JavaScript to crawl these links. Beautiful. Here's the problem. If you didn't explain to the developer that they also need to not use JavaScript to place the links on the page, or to render the whole navigation as a whole, to add it into the page, then those links might still not be crawlable, or at least that's not the ideal way, because Google says they want to have all the links in both rendered and unrendered HTML. And what you can see with this pink and green thing on the right, it's called a diff-checker. What it's saying is when we look at this page unrendered, we get one set of code, and when we look at it rendered, we get another. And the pink stuff is what's removed by JavaScript, and the green stuff is what's added. So what you can see is that there was one line of navigation, or one line for the navigation that was in the unrendered version of the page that was removed, and then all of these links were added by JavaScript. Now, there wasn't a JavaScript link before, and there's not a JavaScript link after. It's just that we use JavaScript to add all of these links to the page, and that can cause problems for Google. And so when we look, though, this is really important because it's a huge navigation with a lot of sub-navigation. I'm not going to tell you that this is a great idea in the first place, but if you do that deep of a navigation, you want all of it crawled, and that means it needs to not just have HTML links, but the HTML links need to be there in the rendered and unrendered version of the page. And if your developers either don't understand this, or you don't understand this, or you don't explain it well enough, all of these links could be problematic, and some of them could be missed by Google. Now, Google says that they've gotten better, and developers will fight you on this, and they'll say, oh, well, Google said they can crawl JavaScript. Don't worry about it. And it's true that Google can crawl some JavaScript, but many SEOs have done tests that show that when the rendered and unrendered HTML and rendered and unrendered links especially match, that you're going to get better crawling, indexing, and overall rankings. So that's something to look out for. But again, you need to be looking at these things to know and capturing the code. So next story, CBS for the LA site. Let's pretend we're the SEO at CBS News. We care mostly about LA, and we've done an internal linking project. This one again involves JavaScript, and it involves the diff-checker, but it's over time. So we're comparing unrendered HTML today versus unrendered HTML yesterday. And what we can see is that when we ask for a change in the site, let's go back. We ask for a change, and they make a change, and they're making a change on a link, and it looks kind of right. We see the unrendered code from 4.6 and the unrendered code from 4.3, and we say, well, we've lost traffic. We don't understand why, but it's specifically to our Los Angeles page. What is the difference? And the developers say nothing's different. We didn't change anything. We did everything the same way it's always been. There are no changes. And you're like, well, man, how could we lose all this traffic and nothing's changed? So if you take the code from 4.6 before things started to go bad, compare it to today, then you can see side by side, did code change? Yeah, a little bit. They've changed some links for the navigation, but most specifically, they've changed this LA link. So let's zoom into that. What does that look like? So when we look at just this top link to the LA page, you can see / Los Angeles, CBS News Los Angeles is the link text. But then we look at the green one. This is how it changed on 4.13. It's / Los Angeles / Los Angeles, same anchor text, CBS News Los Angeles. It seems like someone introduced an error into the code. See how it's Los Angeles twice? If that's an actual page, it definitely shouldn't be, but more likely it's a problem. It's a bug that went live. Someone made a mistake and updated this relative link to go to Los Angeles, and that's why our Los Angeles traffic is down, because it's a bad URL. So it should have been going to this one, Los Angeles / local news, Los Angeles. Again, not recommended. That's a pretty bad pretty risky move, but you can see that at least Los Angeles in one of the URLs has no space, and Los Angeles in the other one has a hyphen. But again, there's so many potential errors that can happen when you do URLs like that, that the SEOs maybe should have seen that in advance and said, hey, like these URLs, this is gonna trip someone up, and in fact, here's when it did trip someone up. So lightning round, let's bring this all together. Those are things where Google's making life hard and making you feel like an imposter. People you work with might be making life hard, making you feel like an imposter. But I think using the facts can help you feel less like an imposter and be more honest and authentic, admitting what you know and what you don't, but having facts and real screenshots to back that up. So looking at real site archives, keeping real site archives. Like I said, MobileMoxie has some tools that do this. Other options are out there too. We like ours because they do mobile and desktop. But looking at a real site archive of your own site, of competitor sites, and of search results, and making sure that those are include mobile, real results that are location specific, not just anywhere in the US, but a market that you actually care about, or anywhere in the world, in the markets that you care about, to see, because sometimes the results will change from one location to another, especially in local SEO. Or if you're doing international SEO, you don't just want to look at keyword rankings in your country, you want to look in all of the countries and cities that you're targeting. And just know your site's normal. Know what SEO problems you have and have had, and the history, capabilities, what platforms you're using, and what your KPIs are, and know that those are going to change from one SEO to another. And when you see something that makes you feel like you might be an imposter, just remind yourself that they're facing a different layout in these things. They have different teams, they have different strengths, they have different weaknesses, they have different industries and different competitors, different data resources, different tools. All of those things might make their job easier or harder. There's really no way to know. So just knowing, like, comparison is what ultimately creates the feeling of being a phony or an imposter, but the comparison is almost always a bad one. You're never going to have someone who has the exact same pros and cons that they're facing, and so the comparison is almost always meaningless, both like you as an SEO, but also like your job and your expectations. They're just going to change with every situation. They're always very specific. So you have to know your strengths, your team strengths, your company's strengths, your network strengths, and your competitive landscape, and use all of those to your advantage. Reaching out for help when you need it, admitting, hey, I'm not an expert in this, but I know who is a much better solution than just guessing, right? And so leveraging your strengths and acknowledging and supporting your weaknesses so that you can either get better or find someone and get some better information, some better advice. And just remember, there are limits to what SEO can do. It's not magic. So you need to make sure that the goals that you have for yourself, your team, and that your bosses have for you are realistic. And even realize sometimes you might not be able to SEO stuff on your site. It might be easier to get something ranking for your brand in YouTube, and you get more traffic from that going through YouTube if you can rank it number one, because lots of videos rank there for that query. Being realistic and saying, okay, we might not be able to get our little blog to rank for that query, but a lot of videos rank. Let's push on that. Or, just looking at the reality of the situation and taking it head on, because sometimes you can be clever and you don't have to push up against a brick wall. Like if this site has a lot of problems, we might not be able to rank it, but what doesn't have problems is Twitter. Or what doesn't have problems is Facebook. Let's rank stuff there. Or we can rank on other sites. So it opens up your creativity and your potential. And just feel deeply and know that everyone sometimes feels like an imposter. Even some of the best SEOs and the smartest people around the world gets imposter syndrome. And Lily Ray, she said this again, like, we're all struggling with all of the changes coming out of Chat GPT. So she said, just when you think your SEO imposter syndrome was bad, try Chat GPT imposter syndrome. It's just a constantly changing thing. And then the last thing is just admit when you don't know something, and know that you can find it out. And that is a super powerful combination. So as an SEO, your job is to know what are the good bets and bad bets, make as many good bets as you can, avoid bad bets. And when you're not sure, find out, ask somebody, reach out, and stay curious, stay intimidating. Thanks. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. To be notified about future videos, click the logo. And to try the MobileMoxie Mobile SEO Toolset, use the promo code YouTube to get 30 days free. They're mobile-first SEO tools for a mobile-first world.